I was about 2 months away from getting 13 inches of my colon removed, where I would have a permanent colostomy bag for the rest of my life. And I heard this sort of voice that now I think is sort of a higher self or something that came over me and just kind of said, no, this isn't in the plan. And she said to me, you were a musician in your past life and a sound healer in another life, but you killed yourself both times. And so you've come back this time to sort of merge those two worlds together and make it right. So that was in June 2024. I started music and I've released 20 songs. I'm at 4 million streams and I'm on 12 radio stations right now. I had to go through an entire period in my life that was very difficult. Lost a lot of people, lost fathers, lovers, best friends, lived in hospitals. I had to go through a very grueling existence that I have some gratitude for now. And I saw the future version of my concert. I saw us starting the concert with a breathwork meditation, people putting their phones away, my merch being spiritual healing, shower filters, the things I use to heal myself. So, I mean, the best songs I've written, the highest streamed songs on Spotify are all less than 20 minutes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when I say 20 minutes, I mean the concept, the double themes, the lyrics, the melody, and the structure and arrangement is in less than 20 minutes. You can trick your body for 25 minutes into feeling like you're the day that you fell in love with someone. I don't believe they're coincidences, and I also believe that people have a unique purpose on Earth, and I think once they connect with it, I would say once you can figure out the laws of the universe and slowly dip your toes in, we're moving towards our default state, which is unconditional love. We are awareness, we are light beings, we are immortal. Again, these are just my beliefs, but a lot of people also believe this. We are all connected, we are one, and I think what we're realizing is how we've been manipulated. It's like Elon Musk comes in and like Dodge and maybe he finds some waste, but then, those companies aren't going after his companies. And so weird how they didn't go after the Department of Defense where there's billions of dollars missing. And so it's like, I don't know who can be trusted to sort of take the reins here and lead humanity into a better place because everyone's got their own agenda. And they're 2 to 3 years old and they go to their parents and say, I was murdered in that park by a guy named John. And then they look into this cold case and it all checks out. There's Eastern philosophy, stuff like that. I think what we're moving towards is perhaps where we came from and why we're here on an individual basis. The background is that, I own this company, Grey Smoke Media. I started it 12 years ago as a background I had a background in PR and I was able to leverage media for my clients and get them on television. And then, there were secondary benefits where it would show up in their search results, which we call SERPs, credibility, SEO, other things like that. I work with a company called Diamond & Diamond. They were 20 people in Toronto. In a little over a decade, we've been able to grow them to the biggest personal injury firm in Canada, 600 employees, biggest real estate firm. And then we've kind of gone into different areas. And during that, I taught myself all the different facets of marketing. But if you start to humanize your business with blogs about clients that you've helped, your journey, and you connect with people on that human level, right, you will counter a lot of the AI stuff as your competitors just fall to the wayside. I do question what this all comes at the cost of, because, I'm not one of these people that believes that AI is going to create people say, it'll create new jobs. It's not really how it works. I mean, Instagram sold for billions of dollars with 12 people. If 50,000 graphic designers are replaced by a software program that's $29 a month, I don't really see how that fixes that. But we have lost human connection. I think what I want to do with my concert and the music I'm creating is really create a movement away from our phones. I really have gotten sick of going out for dinner with my friends and they're on their phones, or we're at a meeting and everyone's on their phones. I'm trying to get away from that. And I think there's a huge percentage of the population that feels the same way.
Hi, and thanks for joining us today on the show. We've got Jordan Whelan, or Jordan Power, as you'll hear. We're going to discuss music. Things metaphysical. We're going to discuss legal marketing to a certain degree as well, but really we're going to talk about what's going on and where we're going. Here's my conversation with Jordan. Jordan, thanks for joining us here today. I guess dialing in from San Diego, is that right?
Yeah, I've been here for 3 months. I'm a newbie.
Very nice. From Toronto, right? Moved down from Toronto?
Yeah, I was born a little outside Toronto, but I lived in Toronto for about 15 years. That's where I spent most of my life.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking offline. There's a number of things we're going to get into, but obviously, Grey Smoke Media occupies a lot of your time, as does music and a number of the other things you're working on. What is inspiring you these days?
About a year ago, I had a rapid spiritual awakening. I was completely unconscious for about 36 years of my life, and what happened was and this might sound a little hokey to people, but I was sick with a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed when I was 18, took a drug called Accutane. There were multi-million-dollar lawsuits that were settled in the US, but unfortunately because of Canada and a lot of reasons, my case never went through. The payday would have been nice for the suffering. But I was about 2 months away from getting 13 inches of my colon removed, where I would have a permanent colostomy bag for the rest of my life. I was depressed, I was anxious, I was trying to run a business and, expand as a human being. And I had a doctor say to me, this is the only option. There's no other options. As a background, both my parents, when I grew up, were doctors. So I was in that conventional medical establishment. And I heard this sort of voice that now I think is sort of a higher self or something that came over me and just kind of said, no, this isn't in the plan. And sort of I turned to the doctor and said, it's not really in my plan. And he's just kind of, looking at me like, okay, I've heard this a million times. And I went home and I started looking up on the internet and I started researching places in the world where they didn't have the diseases we had. So it was sort of places like New Guinea, where they didn't have new teenage acne, they didn't have cardiovascular disease. And I sort of thought, why would my body be attacking itself? That doesn't really make any sense. And so I looked up a guy named Paul Saladino and kind of jumped around different people and started doing my own research, which I know has like become a loaded phrase these days, God forbid. And so I eliminated all the chemicals from my entire house. I filtered my drinking water, I filtered my shower water. I made sure that none of the chemicals in my house were everything from deodorant, beauty products. I did not know how deep the rabbit hole went. I did not know that there were products that were sold in our stores that were banned in Europe. And so I also took my diet. I went organic, but just really got the seed oils and a lot of the crap out of my life. I was already eating pretty well. It wasn't like I was an unhealthy person. And within 60 days, the disease that had plagued me for 18 years of my life was gone. I had a follow-up colonoscopy and the doctor's just completely it must be the medication you're on now. And I'm like, well, I haven't touched it for 2 months. And that led to a higher consciousness, an awakening of sorts where I began to question a lot of things that I grew up around, and then eventually that led me to Bali, where I met a woman in a tent who sat me down. And again, I'm pretty close-minded at this point. I'm a gay guy, so what happens is when you grow up, you learn that religion hates you, and then so you sort of tie in spirituality with that, not really understanding the difference between the two. And for about a week, I went back and ubud, and the woman just did all these wacky things to me: inner child healing, sound healing, breath work. And I sort of woke up to who I was, why we're on earth, the purpose. It all sort of flashed in front of me, and she said something really crazy to me. I had been trying to make music for about a year. I'd been running my business, and I was like, I think this is my purpose. And she said to me, you were a musician in your past life and a sound healer in another life, but you killed yourself both times. And so you've come back this time to sort of merge those two worlds together and make it right. And I'm kind of just like guffawed at her, like, okay, here we go. And flew back to Canada. Hadn't been able to write a song for about a year. Sat down on my couch and something just took over my body that was completely foreign to me. They call it automatic writing. So I was hearing the chords of the song and the whole thing came out of me in maybe 5 minutes. And then subsequently, I did my first EP in 3 weeks. And the weirdest thing is I kept flashing back to this woman who said, like, you used to do this, because I was in the studio and I kept having these deja vu moments. Like, I've been here. I know how to do this. This feels extremely familiar to me, even the production aspects, everything. So that was in June 2024. I started music and I released 20 songs. I'm at 4 million streams and I'm on 12 radio stations right now. And I'm trying to go for it. And so, that is the long-winded explanation as to what I'm up to these days. And then at the same time, I'm running my marketing firm, which I love.
I want to talk about the awakening first before we talk about where we're going with this, right? Because that experience itself was obviously, very profound for you. Completely unexpected as well, which I think is part of the draw to it, right? For those that may be thinking, that they're looking for something as well. It's not as though, you were calling for this. It's something that happened, right?
Yeah, Eastern philosophy, Dharma, says that, when it's time for the gifts to come out, the right divine timing to come out, then they will come out. And they really did come out. I had no musical background. I just hear it. It's almost a channeling experience. I'm uniquely positioned in that I am a right brain, left brain person. I can run a business, and I've done it before, multiple businesses, but I've been always more creative than I am a business guy or an entrepreneur. I don't get crazy about the numbers. I just like to pursue things that I like and then find a way to make some money out of them. And so I do think it came at the exact time it had to. I had to go through an entire period in my life that was very difficult. Lost a lot of people, lost fathers, lovers, best friends, lived in hospitals. I had to go through a very grueling existence that I have some gratitude for now, to get to this exact point in this exact moment in my path. And it feels exactly right. When I say automatic writing or how this happens, I think when people ask me how I write music, it's just that I spiritually connect to my higher self and I allow my higher self and the higher mind to take over. And then I think the secondary part of that is that because time is not linear, I think what I'm actually doing is connecting to my future self that already exists now and basically borrowing the song and pulling it back into the now through lucid dreaming, through out of body experiences, through psychedelics.
Is a lot of this psychedelic driven? Is this when you're kind of connecting to higher, or like for a lot of what you're describing? I mean, I think a lot of people have explored that, and I think there's been a current of thought in that. Is that what it is that what a lot of this work is? Is that what's drawing a lot of this work out?
Initially, but I think it's sort of a cheat code initially, right? You don't need it, but you do need it when you need to fully pull yourself out of the matrix. And so I've used mushrooms to write 5 songs in 3 days just because it was I remember one time I did a mushroom trip, it was like 6 grams, and I got back to my apartment and I was like, I can't stop writing songs. It just was a complete, like I couldn't even answer my phone. It just took over my body. Now I think just from, trying to run a life, you can't get high all the time. I use breath work and I use a combination of sound healing and I use meditation like an hour a day now. I start the breath work and I get to the meditation to get into these zones. I do think it helps. And DMT was extremely helpful for me. I did DMT alone on my couch, which is not recommended. But I'm sort of a fearless guy. And I saw the future version of my concert. I saw us starting the concert with a breathwork meditation, people putting their phones away, my merch being spiritual healing, shower filters, the things I use to heal myself. I saw it all 7 months ago. And so I've just been basically on a quantum level, I've just been connecting with that future reality.
Yeah, because what you're describing, I mean, the current thought, or a lot of people now discussing quantum, right? And I think that there's more and more. I don't think maybe proof is not the right word for it, but there's more and more substantiating the quantum reality. How do you describe it?
An invisible field, basically, of everything's energy, right? The idea is particles and everything, and if you look at the double slit experiment. I mean, some people say that the lowest form of energy is actually plasma, but that everything's energy, and essentially in the double slit experiment, they've shown that when you stare at something, that it's a wave of probabilities, and then you can sort of collapse them into 3D form. There's other schools of thought. There's everything from non-duality, solipsism, stuff like that. I don't really know what I fully believe, but I can tell you that I can now manifest things in 24-hour periods, good and bad, right? Which is scary because I can vividly imagine things, and then all of a sudden, if I code them with anger, which is a strong emotion, it happened to me with my lawyer yesterday. It was like I coded it, and I was creating these scenarios, and boom, it's become very freaky to me. But I think we're kind of getting this period at this exact moment in time. And you look at I listen to Tom Campbell on Joe Rogan and a couple other people. Dr. Hoffman, I was listening to yesterday, is like, we don't really know the full nature of reality. And it's kind of this weird time where we're figuring out that maybe we are wearing some sort of a VR headset and we're sort of just decoding the energy around us. And maybe the purpose of life is to evolve our consciousness. And I do believe that I've lived many lives. The reason being is because when I do the psychedelics, I can see them. And the one where I was a spiritual healer, I was definitely a woman, because when I did the really high doses of ketamine, it was a complete disassociative experience where I looked down and I saw these little girl feet in this tribe, and the immediate feeling that came over me was, oh, I've been here before. This feels like I remember this.
Do you have that experience at all during waking moments?
Not of past lives, but sometimes I'll just be walking down the street and half of the chorus of a song will just come in my phone, and then I'm frantically running to record it. I went to this medium, and I it's funny to say this because like a year ago I would have been like, Jordan, go get psychological assistance. But I went to this medium, and she said to me, it's funny that, she's kind of connecting with my higher self and, higher entities. And she's like, they think it's funny that you think you're writing these songs. And I was like, I don't think I'm writing these songs. Because when I'm writing these songs, they don't, a lot of artists, they sit down and at the piano and they're just hacking. And I've done that. But this is truly, it's so easy sometimes, it's scary. And I almost feel guilty putting my name on the credits.
Well, I hear that, many of the most recognizable songs that we know, like the artists that create them, did them in a matter of moments. In fact, Eric Clapton described how the most successful things he ever did came to him in a matter of moments, right? So I think that there's, going back to the automatic, right? There's some that we're discussing, and it's across any art and any application. You see anybody's passionate, successful in whatever realm they're working. There's something that flows through people to create. For you, it's happening for music, and you're speaking to it for music, but it could be anything. Right? When people are able to tune into what we're describing here, that's where greatness is created.
Yeah, it's that flow state, and it's sometimes I'll go 3 days and I'm like, I can't even try to write songs right now because there's no magic in me. I don't feel an elation. I don't feel a warm chest. I don't feel motivated, and then it's like I can't shut it off for 3 days, and it's a feeling where they describe in metaphysics sort of the observer effect, where you're not really your thoughts, right? You're sort of pulling back and watching this all like a movie. And I've had that sometimes when I'm writing the lyrics on online. I'll write like 3 lines of something, and then I don't really know what it means, and then I go back 30 seconds later and I decode it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of poetic. Like I didn't even think about like the double meaning there. And then I go, that wasn't me, because I would have had to consciously think that through for 4 or 5 minutes to kind of piece it together. So, I mean, the best songs I've written, the highest streamed songs on Spotify, are all less than 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when I say 20 minutes, I mean the concept, the double themes, the lyrics, the melody, and the structure and arrangement is in less than 20 minutes. And I feel it's kind of this crazy elation feeling, but it's also it's incredibly freaky still after a year.
Yeah, it sounds like it's still surprising you, although it's becoming more familiar. Clearly, as you're able to tap into it. What allows, that's why I asked on psychedelics as well, how much is that influencing things? Because I've spoken to many that, yes, perhaps there may have been an entry, a gateway to it via that, but they're also describing how they're able to get into it through meditation, through other methods, and able to go there more regularly. Are you finding, you describe meditation, are you finding tools that are able to take you there with as opposed to using psychedelics?
Solfeggio frequencies for me are everything. So, when I write songs, the 528 hertz is technically in the key of C. Even if and this goes back to past life sound healer, that there's some innate gift there, is that when I hear the 528 hertz, I don't even need the chords. I hear the chords coming through. So you've got that, oh, right? And I hear the chords moving, and I can write just the 528 hertz. So for me, it's an alignment with the frequency. And if you think of sort of any metaphysics and sort of law of attraction, all these different things, is when people ask me, how do I get money? How do I did this with romantic prospects like a month ago, is that my spiritual teacher is like, oh, you don't have to go outside of you for anything. Stop doing that. So anything you chase is going to run away. She said, it's very simple. Just sit on your floor. No, you have no past, no future, completely present. Do some breath work, get your nervous system regulated, get into a deep, deep breathing pattern. And for me, I have a particular one, which is just sort of in and out, box breathing. And then listen to 528 hertz is going to open up your heart chakra, and your heart is associated with, love, abundance, stuff like that. And she said, you can trick your body for 25 minutes into feeling like you're the day that you fell in love with someone. And it's not just love for people, it's love for self, it's love for animals, love for nature. And I sort of just cycled through this video of me hugging dogs, of me in nature, the moments I fell in love in the past, the hugging my parents. And I just sat in that and held that for 25 minutes. And within a week, 3 romantic prospects that were exactly aligned with the type of values I have appeared serendipitously in my reality. And so that's, again, that's all you have to do, is you just have to align with the frequency, embody it, and then believe that, creation's finished and that it's yours. And so I've been doing that with business and different things. And it's still freaky to me. This whole thing is still freaky.
Yeah, it still catches you off guard. Let's talk wealth abundance then as well, or abundance, but particularly with regards to wealth. How was that manifested?
Well, 2 things changed last year. I decided to only work with people that I want to see succeed, that I want to go for dinner with, that I feel spiritually connected to. And I've worked with a lot of people in the past, made millions of dollars, that I don't really care for, and it didn't sit right with me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is abundance-wise. You have to recognize it. So to bring the abundance into your life, and I've been able to do this, is you have to have gratitude for what you have and for what's coming. So you set, it's everything from a roof over your head to your health, which is obviously personal for me, to your food, to the opportunities that are out there. You have to see it. You have to be happy for people that have done well. You can't look at people that are rich and hate them, because you'll never be able to align with that frequency if you see money as something bad. And then what I've been essentially doing is just sort of vividly imagining emails in my inbox, leads, clients, calls, the feeling that I would hold in that, and then the feeling like what it would be to be abundant, hold that frequency. And it's been so easy. And I think of all the years, JP, that I ran around like a chicken with my head cut off, just trying to force it, make it work, get people to like me. It had this desperate energy around it. I was just crazy. And then now when I do this metaphysics stuff, it's just like, it's like a movie. You just, oh, this, I know, you're not going to believe it. I know this person. I mean, even us connecting today, this has happened to me 3 times now. The last 3 interviews I've done, there's been a metaphysics bent to it when we were going to talk about marketing. And it's no coincidence, right? So my publicist was like, oh, you do these interviews. And then you and I just immediately, frequency-wise. So I believe in it deeply. And I think there's a lot of people that don't, or they don't want to go there, because then it's like, oh, did I manifest an illness? And are you blaming me? And then it gets into larger questions. But I know what I believe now.
Yeah, and I hear that. I take what you say for that, and it's not for everybody. For those that are interested in exploring, though, and for those that, you were very close-minded yourself, even as you described, right? But for those who maybe have seen maybe just a couple of coincidences that, that they're pondering on a little further, to think, well, actually, was that just a coincidence then, or why is this actually happening this way? For those type of people, what can they do? Baby steps. What can they do to, perhaps broaden and increase the likelihood that things continue to manifest in a positive manner for them?
I think the first thing I would tell people to do is, well, a lot of people, when they get defensive, I just say to them, do you really know why you're here? Do you really know why you're on Earth? Do you really know what this is? Are you that certain what happens when you die? And you sort of see them kind of, they're taken aback, like, I haven't really thought about that. I thought I just arrived here. I'd say the first thing you do is you study the laws of the universe. You can read, Kabbalion. You can kind of look into some of these teachers. You can see who you connect with. Some people like Bashar or Law of Attraction, Abraham Hicks, stuff like that. You can see what works for you. And then immerse yourself in higher consciousness communities, because then you will meet people that have made miracles happen. And I would say, honestly, my music career to this point, it's been less than a year, is nothing short of a miracle. And I don't mean that in a, wow, look at me kind of way. In a way, like, I don't know what's going on. I kind of do. But I don't believe there are coincidences. And I also believe that people have a unique purpose on Earth. And I think once they connect with it, I would say once you can figure out the laws of the universe and slowly dip your toes in, a 10 to 20 minute meditative practice is amazing. And people, the number one thing I say, people say, I tell them all these things. They're like, how are you doing all this stuff? And I'm like, you got to meditate. And the number one thing I hear from 90% of people is, I've tried. I can't do it. It's like, well, I don't go on social media. I don't really read the news anymore. That frees up 4 hours a week for everyone. So you can do it. It's just, what do you want out of life? And people think it's just a hokey thing. You just sit in the silence, but it's not. It's about connecting to your higher self. It's even just on a level of, like, most people don't have ADHD. I actually think that's something that was kind of created. So even maybe just tackling that.
It's interesting because I've had a wide range of, thought leaders, world experts on the show. And no matter what their area of expertise is, I won't say to a person, but almost without fail, it's been enlightening to hear how they have all incorporated a meditation practice into what they do. No matter how brief it may actually be, as they say, almost without fail, there's been some component of a meditation practice, reflection. They even, business leaders and those that say that they're busiest of all, they say as they get busy, they recognize the importance of making the time for their meditation practice. So great things have come from it. I've certainly seen that. And I'm hearing more and more people now describe sort of, quantum and other fields and other areas. You described sort of a community, you're finding a community. How have you been able to connect with one? How has that occurred for you sort of organically?
I've immersed myself in, so for me right now, I'm trying to finish up my second album. And so it's incredibly important to me. I'm almost living monastically right now. Like, I really, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but at this phase of my life, I'm very careful about my energy. Energy transference is real. I tell people that. I think even, business, sexually, people just do not understand how electromagnetic fields interact with each other. For the past 3 months, obviously moving here, it's been a little overwhelming, but I have kept up a breathwork practice. I've done Kundalini awakenings, the light awakenings, which has been, I love it, but man, it's a little wacky. People are speaking in tongues, they're screaming, they're crying, but you learn compassion in that, right? You never know what this person's going through. The spiritual community, there's a lot of schisms in it, and I would say one of the things that's so interesting is there's a big shadow to it. You are dealing with some people who think it's bad to have money. Then you're dealing with another variety of people that are, sort of looking for answers, and they're spinning out of control because they just got out of rehab or something. You've got different groups, but the one thing that kind of pulls us all together is just we've kind of humbly said, like, we don't know what's going on, and we're submitting to the system, and that's been really great. And so I find if you want to connect with people in that way, you just sort of go to these events. You go in with an open mind, and you'd learn things from each other. I was learning about Bufo yesterday from the breathwork instructor, and they teach you things, and you see what hasn't worked for people. And the thing that's really important to remember is that, like, a lot of people study this stuff for years, and it doesn't click for them. They'll watch manifestation videos for 4 years because they don't get the nuance. And one of the most important two things of all this is, number one, your nervous system has to be regulated if you're going to take on anything big, or if you're going to try to manifest or anything around metaphysics. That was a huge problem for me. I had a lot of trauma growing up. I could go on and on about it, but I've been doing energy healing, breath work, meditation, these things to realign my system. And then second of all, you're never going to become something in your 3D reality if you cannot rewrite the subconscious programming that you have. So, for example, people grow up poor, they think money's evil, they think it's unattainable, stuff like that. It's if you really want to do this, it's something that requires 2 to 3 hours a day for months.
Yeah, it's focused effort, right? And you get out what you put in, obviously. So focused effort with that. How do you reprogram your subconscious?
I use subliminals. So I bought this headset, and it's got myself speaking on a loop, or I play an 8-hour one, and you can sleep with it, kind of like an eye mask. And then as you're sleeping, it's rewriting, and you'll wake up just in a different mindset. But you can also do shadow work with a spiritual teacher to try to deconstruct your programming and why you think of yourself a certain way, or why we see others a certain way, why they trigger us, what we see in them. So I've been doing that, and it's tough. It's not easy. It's because your ego is going to fight you every step of the way. It's going to try and pull you back into what's familiar. And so someone like me who had a lot of trauma, I try to stay safe, right? I go into that. And so I've been pushing through that, and obviously things have been clicking, and then sometimes I regress like a great deal. It's not rainbows, this whole process. It is very difficult, and in some ways I'm worse mentally because I've had to confront so much and the emotions that I stuffed down for years. But I do feel like I'm moving towards something greater.
And what is that? That's, I think, what we're getting to. I think that as as a society, maybe not the right way to say it, but as a consciousness, we are going towards something greater. How do you define it? What do you think we're heading toward?
We're moving towards our default state, which is unconditional love. We are awareness. We are light beings. We are immortal. Again, these are just my beliefs, but a lot of people also believe this. We are all connected. We are one. And I think what we're realizing is how we've been manipulated in a lot of ways, how a lot of the stories we've been told are not true. But then the problem is now then, so everybody's self-interested. So, it's like Elon Musk comes in and like Dodge, and maybe he finds some waste, but then, those companies aren't going after his companies. And so weird how they didn't go after the Department of Defense, where there's billions of dollars missing. And so it's like, I don't know who can be trusted to sort of take the reins here and lead humanity into a better place, because everyone's got their own agenda. And I'm distrustful in that manner. But
Yeah,
I would say,
and then as you say, like, we don't need to focus on that. We need to be aware that exists. But when you say trusting who to follow, well, maybe not follow then, right?
or just disconnect.
Disconnect and tune in to more what you're describing otherwise. Because as you say, and I agree, the underlying current is love, right? And people are feeling that, and it is taking taking us somewhere? That's what I'm asking on. It's interesting that as you just voiced it, I agree to an extent, and I'm wondering if there's still more, and if you could dig deeper.
Um, I mean, I think it's so individualized. I mean, I think that there's a unique purpose as to why everyone's on Earth. I think everyone has unique gifts. I think they build them up through past lives. I mean, you look at some of the work of, you look at people who, the other week I was watching near-death experience videos. There's like thousands of people who like have the exact same story. And you can look at the book Many Lives, Many Masters. You can look at the work at the University of Virginia, where they take these kids and they're 2 to 3 years old and they go to their parents and say, I was murdered in that park by a guy named John. And then they look into this cold case and it all checks out. There's Eastern philosophy, stuff like that. I think what we're moving towards is perhaps where we came from and why we're here on an individual basis. And then I think what's driving people to get some people together at this point is they're not being served by the systems that they used to follow. For example, the news is largely trauma-based mind control. I say that as someone who worked in the mainstream media for 12 years, and I mean that on conservative side, liberal side, whoever's serving their agenda. I actually think there's going to be a disconnection from the news, and there has been the move towards podcasts, but I think generally people are going to start to pull back from it. I can tell you that I used to read the news 4 hours a week. Maybe I do 5 minutes now, and nothing's lost. Same with social media. It's the same people trying to get attention. It's the same game. But it's not all of us. We say, some people say this like new earth, higher consciousness, evolution. There's a split, right? Some people have no interest in realizing why they're here, self-improvement, and maybe they will in 10 more lifetimes if you believe in that. But I don't try to change anyone or try to influence them at this point. I just try to find my tribe and my people that are going to elevate me. And I try to figure out, why I'm here. And my Dharma, my spiritual teacher read me my Dharma, and I got goosebumps. It was basically like, you came here to do what I'm doing right now. It said marketing, it said music, and it also said to get rid of my pride. And that's been something that's plagued me my whole life. And so yeah, that was a protracted answer. I don't know. I'm not sure if I answered it, but
yeah, and and it's interesting because you kind of went back to the things that we really don't need to be putting any energy into, right? And I think people are realizing that, and came, I think, full circle to realizing where, it's been revealed to you where you ought to be spending your energy, and you're clearly doing that now. And that's taking to a higher place, right? You can clearly hear and see that. So,
what about you? What would you say?
Well, I mean, this conversation, I think, is what I'm meant to be doing, and I think that that things are being revealed to us, right? Again, I also believe there's no coincidences. So the fact that we're having this conversation now, and leading to a higher consciousness, you've a number of times talked about it sort of on an individual basis, and I think it's great to reflect upon yourself. But I think there's something more, right? As a collective as well. That's that we're headed towards. And for those that are not paying attention, well, they'll be pulled along, I think, blindly. But there are people that are now focused on it, and it is happening, I think, very naturally and organically. And for that reason, it sort of speaks to what we've been saying as a part of the theme of this conversation. It's a path. We're not sure exactly where, but we know that there's an undercurrent of love to it, and that is leading to a better place. And maybe it's all a question of what are the questions we're supposed to be asking, right? Are we asking the right questions? It's hard to know what questions to ask. But what all you can do is ask the questions, right? And then continue to follow. I always say trust and follow, and I think that's the path that I'm on myself as well, because it speaks to me at different times in different ways. And again, this conversation is another example of that. I want to turn the focus a little bit to AI, because I think there's a big component of that as well that is starting to be revealed for this as well. We focused a little bit on that in this show, and obviously it permeates. I mean, people don't realize the degree to which it permeates all aspects of our lives. So in a similar way, to say that we need to be open to it and eyes open to it, how is AI influencing your life, and what impact is it having on the types of things that you're doing?
On the musical side of things, I sort of refuse to incorporate it on the production side of things. On the production side of things, I just think it's too infancy stage. And also, I really enjoy the collaborative process of working with someone in person. Some people use it for lyrics. I can't do that. I just sort of tap into my heart center. On the business side of things, So the background is that, I own this company, Gray Smoke Media. I started it 12 years ago as a background in, I had a background in PR, and I was able to leverage media for my clients and get them on television. And then, there were secondary benefits where it would show up in their search results, which we call SERPs, credibility, SEO, other things like that. And then I sort of narrowed it down about a year and a half ago to just lawyers, because lawyers are pompous, usually. So are doctors. And obviously, not all disclaimer, but I found out a lot of lawyers were distracted and they didn't know what they didn't know. And I had this case study of 12 years ago. I worked with a company called Diamond and Diamond. They were 20 people in Toronto. In a little over a decade, we've been able to grow them to the biggest personal injury firm in Canada, 600 employees, biggest real estate firm. And then we've kind of gone into different areas. And during that, I taught myself all the different facets of marketing and, and unconventional marketing, because that's the fun stuff for me. But that's the background, just so people are like, who is this guy? He's, just prattling on about spirituality. So I would say with AI, there's two things. First of all, I would say that anyone that's scared of AI, the counter to AI is humanness, which ties into what we were just saying, right? So if you are, for example, if you're a lawyer and you're filling your blog with content, if the content's easily replicated by AI, or if it's something that your competitor can just spin with any type of program in 2 minutes, you're in trouble and you're not going to get ahead. But if you start to humanize your business with blogs about clients that you've helped, your journey, and you connect with people on that human level, right? You will counter a lot of the AI stuff as your competitors just fall to the wayside. In terms of my clients, we use AI for internal management. Chatbots and stuff like that are good for managing clients, CRM databases, stuff like that. On the marketing side of things, it can be used to sort of spark creativity, come up with ideas. Competitor analysis is great. Look at trends for you instead of sifting through a bunch of different things. But I'm overall, I do question what this all comes at the cost of, because I'm not one of these people that believes that AI is going to create. People say, oh, it'll create new jobs. It's not really how it works. I mean, Instagram sold for billions of dollars with 12 people. If 50,000 graphic designers are replaced by a software program that's $29 a month, I don't really see how that fixes that. So I guess it's kind of, the question is at what cost? We replace all these truck drivers with automated machines. What do people do all day? And I've heard people say that, they're going to go realize their dreams. But it's not just about having dreams. It's, during COVID, there were 4 months where people didn't have to work. How many of them wrote a page of their book or a song or started their business? So even though work can be grueling, it gives people purpose. And I am concerned on a personal and spiritual level for where we're heading.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. A lot of the people you described, like, they're never going to write that page, though. They're never going to start that business. So I'd put that aside. The concern itself, though, is valid, because, as you say, if work is where someone is deriving their purpose from, and they aren't working, then obviously that's an issue. Hopefully, more and more are doing the type of thinking that we're describing here in this show, and realizing that there is more. But you're right. There's a large subset of society that's going to be uprooted by the impact of AI. Like it or not, it's coming. Right. So as part of this conversation as well, or part of what I do, I think it's to educate and make sure people are aware that it's coming, and perhaps participate in whatever means possible to help shape it. Right. For example, this conversation, I believe, is helping to shape what the outcome of AI as we know it will continue to be, because the AI is going to be combing through podcasts and shows and the notes and all the things that we do here as well, and educating itself, educating us. So I think it's important that we participate, however small that input may be, to ensure that there is the best, the best put forward. Because I think we're going somewhere where there's going to be this combination, right, of the AI and the humanness you described. You put it very aptly there, right?
Yeah.
That humanness, I think, is what our contribution will be to whatever this greater that we're going to.
Yeah, and even on the artistic side of things with my music and getting out there, and I just hired a PR firm to get me out there, and I sort of think it doesn't matter what AI creates music-wise. People want a person on the stage. They're not going to go see a hologram, although that is a thing which I did see. but they want a story, they want a background, they want to know how you got there, they want you to connect with them on a certain level, and that cannot be replicated in any way. So I think the counter, like I always say, is find the way that, I had a legal dispute. I ended up not using a lawyer. I just used AI and kind of my own acumen. And it was interesting because I was able to handle it just as well as if I would have hired a lawyer for $600 an hour. Obviously, it's not as enforceable because I don't have a law degree and they're not as scared, but I do think for certain people, there's upward social mobility. If I'm a young person who's getting smacked over the head by my multi-millionaire landlord and they're treating me a certain way, I do think there's some social justice there, and that I now have the tools to stand up for myself and put them in their place. So I don't think it's all bad, but we have lost human connection. I think what I want to do with my concert and the music I'm creating is really create a movement away from our phones. I really have gotten sick of going out for dinner with my friends and they're on their phones, or we're at a meeting and everyone's on their phones. I'm trying to get away from that. And I think there's a huge percentage of the population that feels the same way, that it realizes that, it's degrading us, and we've lost our humanness. Young people, they're not dating as much. They're not having sex. Their attention spans have been whittled down to a goldfish. I don't think a lot of this comes at a massive cost. And I think if you did the net negative, net positive, I think it's a negative.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't even conscious that that's actually occurring. So the first thing is to realize what is occurring. Some of the parties that I go to now, some of my friends that are curating the experiences are saying everybody parks their phone. In fact, there's phone checks, right? So you may show up at an event and you get your manila envelope and your phone goes into a sealed envelope and is secured for the evening. I think it's really important, and it goes back to what we're talking about is this humanness, right? That connection. Being at a concert as well. There will always be a draw to have a performer and also be surrounded by people, because there's an unspoken energy that exists between us, right? And as humans, we'll want to continue to experience that. But we are going to this place where there's going to be more and more of there will be a convergence of that AI and that humanness. It's going to be an interesting place as we go to look for that. If someone's going to look for you, where would be the best way to find you, Jordan?
If you want to listen to my music, it's Jordan Power on Spotify or whatever platform you get your music. But if you want to talk marketing, you can book a half hour with me. Half hour on my website, graysmokemedia.com, or you can just reach out and see if we're a good fit. I mostly work with lawyers, but if there's an interesting project and somewhere where I think I could help, I worked with a publicly traded pharmaceutical company 2 years ago. I can't talk about it, but it was the craziest experience of my life, and I had a great time doing that. I specialize in, when I'm not doing music, I specialize in finding very creative solutions for people to get traffic on the internet. I'm driving 25,000 clicks a month right now to my Spotify from a traffic source that people don't talk about. So if you come to me and say, hey, I've got half the budget of my competitor and I need to, 3x of my traffic, we find a way. And so that's what I kind of do. Gray Smoke Media itself is really the only all-in-one legal marketing company that exists, in the sense that there's media buying, SEO, PR, social media. It's kind of all in one symbiosis. So that's where they can reach out to me, just graysmokemedia.com. And then, if they want to follow along to my music. But, music's so subjective. It's not always for everyone. Yeah,
that's right. But it's part of all this exploration, right? It's been fun exploring this with you here today. Thanks for being on. Of course, anybody listening, please go check Jordan out in those two places. Two very varied areas of focus, but certainly well worth exploring. And I'd like to end these shows, Jordan, with something that anybody listening might be able to take with them through the rest of the day, through the rest of the week after they've enjoyed the show. Can you perhaps share some of the things you've heard along the way that have resonated for you, that have allowed you to be the success that you are, and you can imagine will take you to the places you wish to go?
My spiritual teacher said this to me, and just stick with me first when you hear the quote. She said, stop thinking. Thinking is the problem. And, we learn in meditation, we are not our thoughts. We're not our body. We're supposed to let the thoughts go by like clouds, not rejecting them, because whatever you resist persists, right? But tap into your higher self intuition. There's a great meditation I did. I don't remember the name of it. I apologize. But it says basically that at the 25-minute mark of any sort of meditation or stillness of mind, you will get the answer to what you need. So whether it's a fight with your spouse or a business question or a creative question, we are so much more powerful than we are led to believe. Our human mind is so limited. And so what I would say to people is try to find a way to meditate, stillness, stop thinking, listen to your heart. Joe Dispenza talks about the heart-brain coherence. It's real, and listen to your heart and your intuition 99% of the time. If you don't like a person, you don't trust a person, you're probably right.
There you go. Jordan, thanks so much for being here today. I look forward to tuning in, checking out the music and all that you do in the future.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.